Hey guys, this week's leather tip video comes from a question asked by Brian. Brian says he's never used a maul for tooling and would like to move up to using a maul, but wonders what would be a good size to start with. All right, when we're talking about what size of maul we want to use, it's going to come down to personal preference, just like most things do when it comes to tool choice. However, let's talk about some pros and cons to different ones. First off, what are we talking about tooling? So leather tooling, we're going to be talking about our floral work here. Let's start with that. With that, we're talking about running a bevel. So if we're going to run this bevel, we're having to strike that tool with enough force to get our impression. And the other thing we're having to do is pick our maul back up in between strikes. Now, something like this is repetitive, really quick, having to go heavier and softer if we're going to be fading a line out, things like that. So personally, I like a little bit of a lighter maul there. This particular one, this is a 16 ounce. This is the maul that we actually sell. It's a beginner style maul. It's a smooth poly head on that, but works great as far as your typical tooling goes. A couple other of these mauls that I have. This is a 24 ounce and then this is a 3-pound one, both from Barry King. Now, why would we want something so heavy? So the heavy one, it's going to take less down pressure to strike your tool. You almost just let that tool go, or let your maul go, and it's going to strike for you. However, you're having to pick that up. So if you're tooling for a long time, if we're doing a larger pattern like this, that's going to start wearing your shoulder and arm out, having to pick that back up every time. So depending on, what kind of shape you're in physically, some people have problems with their wrists or shoulders or things like that. A heavier maul can be troublesome in that regard, but very handy when we talk about doing things like flower centers. A big center that we're putting in there, it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure because we have the weight of that maul behind there to really set that in there good. When you have a lighter weight maul with the same down pressure, you don't get quite the impression there. To get that to set in there as deep, you have to really hard. So it's kind of a catch-22 on there. Which one's more comfortable to you? For doing just a flower center, I don't mind hitting that a little extra hard. As opposed to if I was having to hit that hard repetitively, then I like going with a larger maul. Now, where would we have to hit repetitively? Well, if we're talking about running a geometric stamp, such as a basket stamp here. If we're going to run this tool, if you're covering a full area, that's a lot of individual stamps there that you're wanting a really deep impression, kind of like our flower centers. But if I'm using a lightweight maul to do that, I'm having to hit that tool really hard and even hit it an extra time to get that same depth in there. So depending on what you're doing, you may want to grab a different maul. But my personal preference, the maul I use to tool every day, a 20-pound maul, that's kind of my go-to. So anywhere from a 16 to a 24 is going to work great for your typical floral carving, things like that. And then if you want a heavier maul to do some of your flower centers, maker marks, or a basket stamp, then I would say get up in that 2 to 4 pound range. Again, all depending on personal preference, but those are a little bit of the pros and cons. There's no right or wrong. It's whatever works for you and whatever you're comfortable with. So I know people that like using a lighter maul, and if they have to get a flower center in there, they just hit a little extra hard. Other people I know, they just like to barely let go and tap that tool with a bigger, heavier maul. It just depends on whether you want to have more force picking up or more force going down. Either way, you can make the adjustments on what size of tool that you're going to be using. So appreciate you guys following along. Further questions, let me know. I will throw a link in the description to the beginner maul, this 16-ounce one that we have here in stock. Otherwise, if you like more in-depth instruction on some of the basic fundamentals in the whole leather shop, be it maul size, tooling fundamentals, different leather selection and such, be sure to check out the link in the description for our online courses, specifically the leather shop basics is one I recommend if you're just getting started to really get that foundation of skills moving forward with where you want to take it. So appreciate you guys. Look forward to seeing you on the next video.